I built my dad's business from a $3 to a $60 million business in a very short period of time on the back of making every penny work like a dollar. My dad's business was doing $3.7 million in sales on 10% gross profit, which means we had $370,000 before expenses. And I built that business from that base to 60 million in 5 years with no M&A, no VCs, because what I did was I day traded attention. In 1996 to 2001, that meant two big bets that I made. One was email. How many people here have done email marketing in their careers? Raise your hands. Please raise them high, I wanna get a sense. Great, so you'll love this. In 1996, I had an email newsletter that had 91% open rates. It had 91% open rates, not because it was so incredible what I was writing in there. I was writing buy this wine, click here. It was incredible because nobody was doing email marketing in 1996. It was a new phenomenon. How many people here had email in 1998? Raise your hands. Great, so for the youngsters here, you're about to learn something because most of the stuff you're gonna know. In 1998, youngsters, this is how email happened. Somebody would send an email and us old folk, we would open and read every single fucking email. The supply and demand of attention. It was a new medium, and all of us treated email the way we treated mail. You had to kind of properly look at it. We have now no longer do that. We now care so much about our time that the reason we don't unsubscribe from newsletters that we don't read anymore is because it takes longer to unsubscribe than it does to just delete. It is time arbitrage. It is attention, and this is how we play. The second bet I made happened a little bit later. You know, when I started WineLibrary.com, Google didn't exist. So it's just fascinating to think about very much the themes of the gentleman right before me about how early this is, how much we don't know. That's how I think about marketing. You know, Google didn't exist for most of this room when we started our careers. The internet didn't exist for most of the people in this room. So I've lived a life where everything was a fad, not just Snapchat, the whole fucking internet was a fad when I started my career. And so what's fascinating to me is the next bet I made was Google AdWords. Google AdWords had come out, and for 5 cents a click before they raised the minimum to 10 cents, I was buying up every wine term, and I was able to buy words like wine and Cabernet and champagne for 5 and 10 cents a click. And very honestly, it is one of the best things I ever did in my career, and it is no question one of the worst things I ever did in my career. I bet very big, and it worked very great, but I was young, and I was doing everything, direct mail, print, radio, television. I was branding, I was marketing, but I underspent on Google AdWords. I always like to say, I had the best hand in poker, and I didn't go all in. It was working, but I didn't understand at that point in my career how much it was working. And when I hear like somebody introduce me and say from $3 to $60 million, and it's impressive and I'm glad and I love it, it's my family, it matters to me. But every time I hear it, I say to myself, it should have been 200. Every person in this room has to understand how unbelievably underpriced and how unbelievably powerful Facebook advertising is right now. Right this second, the scalable, underpriced attention in our society, and by the way, if you are doing business in the Nordics, it's an even better deal than it is in the US because it's a marketplace and it only reacts, I love you guys for that, it only reacts to how much money you guys pump into the system. When BMW and SAS and Coca-Cola actually wake up and understand how underpriced Facebook's ads are, the price of Facebook ads is going to skyrocket and you will regret, like I do, in not spending money in it today. There is an unbelievable amount of people in this room who have opinions on how Facebook works for their business without ever running a Facebook ad. We are making headline reading and emotional decisions about the current state of marketing and opportunity. We are not relying enough on practitioners. I have watched people buy $100 million contracts from one Facebook ad. I've seen it. Not I guessed it, I heard about it. We work with the GEs and the SAPs and the biggest brands in the world. We are grossly underestimating. It's amazing to me that people sit around and talk about Trump and Brexit and Arab Spring and these macro, unbelievable, historic cultural shifts in our society, and then an hour later when they talk about their little business, their $100 million, $500 million, $1 billion, $10 billion little business, and they don't think Facebook can affect it. It is unbelievable naivete, and that's at best. At worst, you are being grossly negligent in how you're running your business out of the laziness to not become educated on what is actually happening in our game. So, I'm fascinated by this. I think this is the great opportunity. This is a generational situation. If you look at the history of marketing, television, radio, the internet, now the social layer on top of the internet, every time there is a huge shift of attention somewhere new, enormous wealth is made and enormous wealth is lost. And this, my friends, is the biggest of them all. One of the great wastes of money in the world is buying programmatic banner ads and pre-rolls across the web for $5 CPMs because it's cheap. I also believe in America, for example, that the Super Bowl ad that cost $5.5 million for 30 seconds is by far the best deal in marketing because everybody in America will see it and you get unbelievable awareness. So for me, I'm fascinated by the nuances. I think you can waste all your money on Facebook if you don't know how to use it. My friends, what's the ROI of a piano? What's the ROI of a piano? Let me help you. For Gary Vaynerchuk, 0. I can't play for shit. But for Billy Joel and Elton John, the ROI was billions of dollars. The ROI of a basketball is 0 for me, for LeBron, $1 billion. This is not about does this stuff work? This is about do you know what to do with it? And the reality is you don't know what to do with it. The far majority of people in here have never been practitioners of the modern day storytelling and media planning and execution for a business result. And that is where the opportunity is. I'm fascinated by how big this actually is. I laugh when people don't understand how much change is happening. And so this rant, this passion I start this keynote with is very simple. It is my hope that one person in this room decides to go back home and run their business properly. And it's not very complicated. It's about becoming educated. Education matters. Just the education of the day always matters more. The fact that so many of you have not spent 30 hours, which is a lot, but very little based on the ambitions that you have for yourself or your organizations, that you've not spent the 30 hours to either read on Google or watch videos on YouTube to how to run an Instagram ad, how to place a Snapchat filter, how to plan Facebook media. And you think that even if you've done it, you've outsourced it to a 25-year-old who gets it, is fascinating to me. Who was the biggest advertiser on Google in the first 6 years of Google? Amazon. Amazon was the biggest advertiser on Google in the first 6 years of Google AdWords. It is not a coincidence that Amazon is one of the biggest companies in the world. They used the underpriced attention to build their company. Who was the biggest advertiser of television in the prime of the 1970s and 80s when television was at scale and underpriced? Procter & Gamble. It is not a coincidence that Tide and Dove and Procter & Gamble became the biggest consumer packaged goods products in the world. This is very basic. What were the biggest sports in America in the 1940s and 50s? Baseball, horse racing, and boxing, who also spent the most time distributing content on radio. What was the biggest sports in the last 20 years in America? The NFL, the biggest spender, the biggest executor of content in the medium. The sport matched the content. There's two young men right there doing tricks with soccer balls on Instagram and YouTube. It's because that content and that formula works on that platform, and they didn't have to get signed by somebody to be able to make that content. They just went direct to the consumer. And then Adidas, the biggest brand in the world in that sport, comes to them and wants to do business with them. I am fascinated by the naivete / audacity of the 99% of people in the business world today in their disrespect for social media. And so I'm trying to put pressure on the collective system, really, to be very frank, and I hope everybody understands this. None of you are my clients. You guys aren't my brothers and sisters. I'm about to leave Stockholm very soon and go back to New York. I don't give a shit if you do anything I'm talking about. I really don't. There's really only two agendas I have here. Number one, Tyler's filming it, and in 4 years, when CPM costs on Facebook are $30 and $40, I'm just gonna post a video clip of this moment, and it's gonna say, I told you so. Number two, which has been much more fruitful for me, is that when I do this and I talk this way, which is practical, not emphatic, not passionate, practical. I'm talking about what's actually happening now, and everybody's acting and executing and spending money and energy like 7 years ago. This is not futuristic talk, this is today. I can talk to you about virtual reality and AR and machine learning and voice all day long. That's not practical for anybody in here. But selling a contract in a construction company on Facebook, which seems extremely foreign to the collective, is happening every day for the 2 or 3 practitioners of this skill in that platform. And it's converting a hell of a lot better than your direct mail and all the other shit you're spending money and energy on. Period. But you don't know that because you haven't tested it. I have. I run direct mail and Facebook for Wine Library. I run direct mail and Facebook for all my SaaS products that I'm an investor in. I look at this stuff every day. And so I say this to have it on the record. And number two, it is an amazing feeling. When I fly home, I will get an email that says, 4.5 years ago, I was in Alabama, I heard your talk, and I own this, and I did this, and here's my business now. I'm looking to get my high from an email that says, you came to Stockholm in late 2017. I didn't even know who you were when you went on stage, but you yelled at me so aggressively, I said, fuck it, I'll try it. And then this happened. My vulnerability, my kryptonite to my thesis is the creative. I have your attention right now. This would be no different than Facebook, right? This framework of the event we're in right now, I have your attention. This is a talk. You came to listen. You're here. You're all paying attention-ish. I see a couple of you on your phone. Keep doing your thing. It's more important. But if the content of my speech is not good and not interesting, I've wasted my opportunity with my creative to create the event that I'm looking for, right? So the thing that I'm very passionate about is please understand what is actually happening in this device. And here's what's happening. This is a place where math and data and science mash into art and creativity, and equally, both of them have to be respected. The short-term financial businesses running here care about math too much. The overly long-term and ideological and artistic people in this room are going too over here and not practical about the math. The balance of the two is everything. And the platform of Facebook and likes, and these are stream mentality sites that have our attention right now, Instagram and things of that nature, is incredibly important to respect both.